And with that, we are live. My goodness, what a night it has been. I'm literally just getting on the set, so if I'm catching my breath, apologies. Welcome in, everybody, to the Critical Eye in conjunction tonight with the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. I'm Isaac Petcash. Jonathan Williams is set to join me via Zoom in just a minute here. We have had so much going on tonight in what's been a chaotic week 4. It's been par for the course with the high school football season so far. You have rivalry games, some that across I-90 that came down to the wire. You had a crazy comeback from one team and a team trying to make their mark at 4-0, having a tough test tonight against Mercyhurst Prep. So much going on tonight. We're trying out our new technology with bringing in Jonathan Williams via Zoom, so bear with us if everything is somewhat off the rocker tonight. But let's go ahead and try this. Jonathan Williams joining us tonight via Zoom. Jonathan, just checking to see if you can hear me here and how your travels were earlier today. Something else, man. Hard to believe. And again, you factor in just everything that's gone on. Okay, I'm being told that we are having trouble hearing Jonathan Williams. Jonathan, we're going to try to get back to you in just a second, see if we can get some of that audio here. Go ahead, Bob, bring it back out to me full screen. Before we get to Jonathan, though, I do want to start with what was arguably the game of the night tonight. We had Seneca Mercyhurst Prep as our game of the week. That was a good one as well. We're going to get to that in just a bit. But before we get to that, what we saw this evening between Fairview and Harbor Creek, a game for the ages. Let's get things rolling, shall we? A game that went down to the wire and was crazy in a lot of ways. It was a 7-0 lead for the Huskies between two 1-0 teams in Region 5 early on. Here's a 4th down and 8 play late second quarter. Heath Betson to Tyshawn Jones for a 14-yard gain to the 10. Next play, Gavin Zillman, 10 yards, up the gut, touchdown. Harbor Creek get all the momentum in this game. They're up 14-0 at the break, but then the first Fairview drive of the second half, they come out punching. Vinny Campoli, the 3-yard touchdown to make it a 14-7 game. Then the Tigers forcing another punt. 4 seconds left in the third. Joey O'Reilly, little 7-yard plunge there. We're tied at 14 heading into the fourth quarter. Early fourth, Harbor Creek punting. Look out. That snap on the punt over the head of Heath Betsa. That's a safety. And it's a 16-14 Fairview lead. Next drive, Campoli capping what would be a 23-point unanswered run for the Tigers. How about Fairview? They're now 2-0 in the region. Big win 23-14 as they beat the Harbor Creek Huskies. Here's post-game sound. Your coach just said he said nothing to you guys in the locker room. Was there talk just amongst teammates about what needed to change in the second half?
Yes. The senior leadership's really stepped up, and we got the boys rounded up. We got a big swing like Hank Aaron into the second half.
Take me through, first of all, the defense and their ability to get stops. What worked for you defensively that allowed you to get off the field with 3 and outs there to start the third quarter?
Well, our job with tackling, I think everybody was there the first half. We just didn't tackle. The minute we wrap up their legs, they go right down.
Offensively, your coach talked about coming off your leg injury. He wants to be kind of touch and go with your running. Do you feel like it was a kind of a rip the Band-Aid off there in the second half? And what do you make of your performance there in the third quarter?
It was for sure. I had to persevere a little bit. It's tough, but, I'm a man, so we got it out there.
We went into the half kind of getting pushed around a little bit and thought we played good defense. We let them off the hook one time there on a big bounce play, but we made some corrections at halftime, and our coaches left the locker room. We didn't say a word to them in any type of motivational situation. We left the locker room and let the kids decide they were going to either man up and play, and they played.
Have you ever seen a half of football of one guy taking over a game like Vinny did?
Well, we've been pretty ginger with Vinny and running the football, but there's a time and place, and he's got stronger as the season went, and it was the half that we needed to lean on our big guy, and he sure stepped up.
Talked about the defense and the huddle and their ability to get off the field quickly. What did they do well, even more so in the second half, that allowed you to get off the field quick on third 3 and out?
We played a great game at Slippery Rock week 1 and wrapped and tackled and just played great defense. We played great defense at Grove City and wrapped and tackled. Didn't play great defense last week, but we showed up and tackled in that second half like we've been practicing all summer. And they tackled, and they wrapped, and that's the key. You got to tackle and you got to block.
when you look at this region, I think we've talked about it. I think I'm sure you guys have talked about it, how competitive it's going to be and how many good teams there are. The importance of starting 2-0 in Region 5. What's that mean for you?
It means a lot to us. This program has come a long way for us to say that we're sitting at the top with 2 wins and tied with whoever. But every week's going to be a battle. These teams are, great teams in this region. They're well coached. That was evident tonight, and that was big for us to pick that up.
Okay, so we are back here talking on our Gen City Sports Podcast Network, talking with Jonathan Williams. He's now joining us by phone. If you're watching on the stream, he's joining us via video right now. We apologize for the listeners who are watching here on our CW live stream, but we will get back to him on video on the stream online right now, and we'll continue with him on the phone here as we roll along. Jonathan, let's just talk this game between Harbor Creek and Fairview. I don't think that I've ever seen a comeback of that proportion in the second half, that you go from doing nothing to completely dominating in the second half. I know you didn't see the game tonight, but just your thoughts of what it takes to be able to turn a game like that around for a Fairview team that looked dead and buried after 24 minutes of this game.
I mean, when you're going into a game like that and you get down big early and you feel like nothing is going your way, nothing can work. A lot of times, man, you go into halftime and it's a big reset moment. You gather your troops, you rally the troops, you get everybody together, and you tell everybody to literally just breathe, calm down, and play one play at a time. When you play one play at a time and you play your football and you're not trying to press, you're not trying to do too much, there's no 20-point score, there's no 21-point play. So the only thing you can do is drive down the field, get your 3, 6, 7 points at a time, and just claw your way back into it. And I feel like that's what those guys were able to do, is really just get one play at a time, claw their way back into it. And that's the way that you have too much. You can't try to press. If you play your game for half of football, that half of football might be good enough to get you right back in it.
Jonathan, how many times have we talked about Vinny Campoli? And if we're able to show the highlights while we're talking, Bob, that would be awesome, because I think it just goes to show his ability to truly take over a game. After the game, you heard him post-game. We were just talking to him. I asked, look, there was a bit of timidness, if you will, from this Fairview team and Mark Sobolewski to make him a full go, right? We knew that he was coming off the leg injury. There was a lot of concern as to how much he would be able to do early in the season. They ripped the Band-Aid off, Jonathan, in this second half. They allowed Vinny to be Vinny, and I think the big key for Fairview in this game was they trusted what they did best. They put the ball in number 6's hands, and they allowed him not just to run the football, but run the offense. There were so many times in this game that Vinny would get to the line with 10 on the play clock, call an audible, and get into the right set. And to me, that's the sign of a veteran quarterback, and not just somebody who is able to run an offense, but someone who can command the starting 11. And I thought that was really big from Campoli tonight, and really what is a grow-up game for Fairview. And Mark Sobolewski said as such afterwards.
You try to protect your guys as often as you can. You try to put them in positions where they're protected, and they're not going to do too much to potentially put themselves in harm's way. Sometimes you just got to let your ballers ball, man. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with Vinny. You gotta let him play his game. You got to let him off the chain a little bit, let him off the leash a little bit, and just let him run wild and let him do what he does. And you saw from Fairview's offense, when he's able to run that offense and he's able to control it a little bit, like you said, he can walk up to the line, make checks, call audibles, dictate the offense based off of what he's seeing out there, and really run the show. When you let him do that and you kind of take him off the leash, I know you're trying to protect that kid. I know you're trying to keep him healthy and everything like that. But when you let him play his game, it's dangerous.
And we're showing the highlights again, and again, just showing what this guy is able to do, specifically in what his ability has been all season long. I want to talk quickly, Jonathan, and touch on the Huskies, because this is a team that had a big Week 1 win against Oil City. We saw them play the game that they want to play, right? John Anger is a physical coach, wants to get to the line, attack the line of scrimmage, and for a half it worked here. The Huskies were poised to move to 3-1, but you look at the way this region is playing out with some of the other finals, both yesterday and tonight, to which we'll get to. A region loss in a game like this, it hurts for the way they lost, but it also hurts just in the sole fact that you may not get back to the top unless you get some other teams to fall above you, just because of how good this Region 5 has been.
Yeah, we've been talking for a while now about how competitive this region is, just about how tough it is from top to bottom. There's not a lot of space between any of these teams. There's not a clear-cut favorite. There's not a clear-cut worst team. Everybody's battling for that top spot. So like we've talked about in previous weeks, every game matters. Every week is going to matter, and you can't afford to drop one because it could hurt you, and it could very well knock you out of having a chance to come back and take that region later on, just because of how competitive it is. So yeah, it's a hard one to lose, especially knowing that you had the lead in this game and gave it up. And you just got to go to next week. You have to go to next week. You have to win. You have to control what you can control at this point. Okay, you drop this one. You have to make sure that going forward you don't drop any more, because you lose 2 games in this region, and it might be tough for you to have a chance.
Yeah, I agree here. And as we get some of the scores that are coming in, you're going to see that the region just gets tougher and tougher at the top. Fort LaBeouf beating Northeast yesterday, so they and Harbor Creek sit at 2-0 in the region as things stand now. So they're in the driver's seats, but there's still a lot to be determined in how many times and how many minutes of this show have we talked about Region 5 and just how crazy it is and is going to be and is likely going to be the case as we roll along here through the remainder of the year. Okay. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Jonathan and I are going to discuss Seneca Mercyhurst Prep. That was our game of the week. Seneca, coming in at 3-0, thought that they had a path to potentially be one of the top seeds in 2A. Mercyhurst Prep had other ideas. We'll take a short break, be back as we roll along here both on air and online on the Gem City Sports Podcast in conjunction with the Critical Eye. Stay tuned.
What's up?
Oh, I was saying go to single cam on StreamYard because I think I'm still up on StreamYard.
You are. That's right.
Welcome back here on the Gem City Sports Podcast on this Friday night of week number 4. We've had some technical chaos in the station, some chaos when it comes to some games tonight, and the biggest one, Fairview, beating Harbor Creek 23-14 with those 23 unanswered points. Isaac Petcash here on the CW by my lonesome with a picture. Jonathan Williams joining us via phone. And if you're watching on our live stream on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Twitch, Jonathan and his traveling self this weekend in the southern portion of our United States, getting a chance to join us via Zoom tonight as well. So our game of the week coming into the night tonight was Seneca Mercyhurst Prep. The Bobcats 3-0. We talked to Jack Corey on the podcast last night. He thought they had a chance to really continue their success and make a big run here. But Mercyhurst Prep had other ideas tonight. Let's go to the highlights of that one. Fans ready to go from Saxon Stadium. The Lakers had taken the last 2 meetings between these two teams, and they're already up 12-0 when we pick it up in the second. But Seneca's defense forcing a turnover. How about Sean Tate losing the football as he tries to make a juke move in the turf? Danny Carter, the third, recovers it. And Seneca has life. Rylan Harwood in from 2 yards off that turnover. Seneca back within 12-7 at that point in the game. Next, Laker drive. Danny Carter. This guy's got such a stutter step, but he loses it again. Second fumble forced by Seneca of the half, and they cash in Harwood his second rushing TD. So deja vu puts Seneca up 14-12. But before the half, check this out. Vinny Feliciano getting loose, tightrope in the sideline. He is gone. Second of the half, Mercyhurst Prep takes a 20-14 lead. We go to the third. Harwood again on the option, finding his way for what would be close to his third touchdown. He had 131 yards. Seneca is up 21-20, but in the fourth, the Laker offense making big plays. Off a turnover on downs. Siabai. 2 plays later, the sophomore, the PF Flyers with a 96-yard TD. 28-21 Mercyhurst Prep. Seneca trying to match the score. Harwood taking off for the first down, but stopped short. Ball goes back to Mercyhurst Prep off the turnover on downs. And who else? Feliciano. We've said his name so many times tonight. Why not again? His 4th touchdown of the night. 262, the number for Feliciano on the ground. Mercyhurst Prep over Seneca, 35-21. The first loss of the year for the Bobcats and for Jeff Root and the Lakers. What a statement victory tonight on their home turf at Saxon Stadium. So we bring Jonathan Williams back in for this. I'll tell you what, Jonathan, when we talked to Jack Corey yesterday, there was a calm confidence about him. There was an understanding that he trusted his guys. And I don't think it was the fact that Seneca played badly tonight. I just think it was the fact that Mercyhurst Prep's offense, where has this been in the first 3 weeks? Because they were on fire tonight.
It's interesting because when you look at this week and last week, 28 points against Northwestern last week, and then come up and put 34 points up today, they figured something out after their first 2 weeks on offense. They figured something out in a way to move the football and a way to put up points after those first 2 weeks, which were less than ideal performances from them on that side of the ball. Mercyhurst Prep has figured something out and has got something clicking on that side of the ball. And like you said, it's not necessarily that Seneca even played bad. It's just that Mercyhurst Prep has had it going on offense recently. And we're going to see if that's a trend that continues for them. But it's something that we didn't see week 1 and we didn't see week 2. But last week we saw flashes of it. They've been building on last week. And you saw it out there tonight. Seneca not playing bad, but I start to wonder sometimes, and I know we talked to Coach last night, and he made a very big point of most of his team are Ironman football players. He said he has 8 starters going both ways. So you start to wonder when you're getting late into these games and you're getting into these dogfights, as you call them, where the score is close and you're playing for an entire 4 quarters. You're playing for a full 4 quarters and you're not necessarily blowing guys out. How much does that take a toll on your guys when you have that many guys going both ways and playing every snap?
I
It
agree.
almost looks to me like Seneca might have ran out of gas just a little bit, just looking at the highlights. Obviously, I wasn't there and I wasn't able to see the game, but just looking at the highlights, it just seems like they might have ran out of gas towards the end to get it done.
I agree. And I think, this Bobcat team, the other thing you have to keep in mind too, and some to the Mercyhurst Preps token with what they lost last year, but depth becomes a factor. You mentioned the starters on the basketball team. A lot of these players are 2-3 sport athletes. But I want to turn the tide for a second and go to Mercyhurst Prep's offense. We talked so much in the offseason and so much was made, and understandably so, about the Lakers losing Paul Johnson at quarterback. They lose a couple of running backs to graduation. They didn't bring back their entirety of the offense. And yet we still see, despite all of that, a Laker team that was able to, when it counted most tonight, make huge offensive plays. To me, I credit Jeff Root, and this is experience with coaching. A lot of this rivalry aspect of games, because Jack Corey and Jeff Root are friends off the field, rivals on the field, is game plan, right? And I think when you get 2 teams and 2 coaches that are so similar with each other and understanding what the tactics are going to look like, what the opponents might have in terms of strategy, you start to see, look, it's a matter of inches, not feet, when it comes to what you can put in that surprises teams and what doesn't. And the Lakers tonight, give them credit. I think the game plan was right there, and right at the end, they were able to make the big plays and win the game.
Yeah, that's what comes with playing in these rivalry games and in these cities and in these city games where everybody knows everybody. These coaches know each other. They coached against each other. Like there's not a lot new when you're playing the same team from year to year, when you're playing a similar coach from year to year. A lot of stuff travels with these coaches, and your philosophies are your philosophies. You might add a new wrinkle in, you might add a couple new plays in, but what you do is what you do. And when you know the guy on the other side sideline from you, it makes it just a tad bit easier to game plan for them, and it puts a little bit of pressure on the guy on the other side from both sides. It puts a little bit of pressure on them to come out with something new and come out with something that they haven't seen in recent years. Like you said, when you got a rivalry amongst coaches, it's just that much more fun to watch because it really turns into a chess match of, okay, you know me, but what do I have in my arsenal that I haven't shown you before?
So a huge win tonight for Mercier's Prep. They take down Seneca in an offensive slugfest. Bobcats dropped to 3-1 for the Lakers, a big win on their home turf. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have more highlights coming down the pike. General McLean's dominant win over Franklin is up next, as well as Cathedral Prep. They keep on rolling as they beat Warren. We'll also talk about some other games and give you some scores as we roll fast and furious here on the show. You are watching the Gem City Sports Podcast here on the CW in conjunction with the Critical Eye. We're back after this. Highlights for you from Edinboro. GM, fresh off their dominant performance over Oil City, taking on Franklin. Opening drive for GM, and they just continue to do what they do best. Hey, Jonathan, I got a question for you. You remember the ZZ Top connection? Yeah, we got that here. Isaac to Jacob for the 23-yard score. Fifth time the two have combined for 6 this season. It's 7-0 GM after a long night's drive would then stall. Lancers get it back, and they do what they do best. Again, they find the end zone. Cohen Beachley plunging in from a yard. Second TD of the year. Extra point miss, but GM's off to the races. They're up 13-zip. GM now outscoring their opponents, or Franklin rather, 142-14 through the last 3 meetings, and they never really looked back. 62-0. Lancers over Franklin today, and the Lancers keep rolling. They're now 3-1 on the season in that department. Let's go to Prep. Welcoming in Warren to town. After a Warren punt, we start things off with the Ramblers' first drive of the game. Davin Friedman, who's been good at quarterback ever since coming back a few weeks ago, finding Matthew Oblick. Big gain, 26-yarder down inside the 40-yard line. Next play, Davin Friedman to Tajon Williams, 34 yards to pay dirt for the score. 7-zip Ramblers in front, and the defense was just as good. After they forced the punt, Friedman right back to work, finds Williams down the sideline, bursting free. That's 6. 39-yard touchdown. Prep rolls to a 52-7 win as they are now 4-0 on the season. These are two of the more impressive teams, Jonathan Williams, that we've seen in the first 4 weeks of the year. I want to touch on Prep really quickly, and then we'll get to GM. And we don't have a lot of time in this segment, but I just want to get your thoughts on Prep. 4-0. Again, Warren's still going through some growing pains, but that offense just gets better and better every week, it seems.
Yeah, that offense is it's interesting watching the person and then now watching these highlights. Prep has a way of doing whatever they need to do to win. They like to run out of shotgun. They like to throw the ball around. They like to spread the ball around to different guys. But if they have to get under center and get to their wing tee type stuff and run jet sweeps and hand the ball off, they will do that. It's interesting because there are there's two sides of the coin with them, whether they have to go ground and pound and they have to really get under center and really slow the game down and just grind it out and get some yards that way, or whether they just want to spread it out and open up the entire offense. it's fun to watch. It's really a credit to their coaching and a credit to their coaching staff that they're able to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to get out of each individual game and which one should be the game plan. It's just a credit to them, and it's going to be interesting to watch them going forward in the development of their offense because they've been playing really good football.
Yeah, and I'll touch on General McClain too, Jonathan, before we go to break, because I think it's something similar. You know, Marshall McCormick really loves to go fast, and I think we've seen GM go faster and faster as each week's gone on. And I know we touch a lot on Isaac and Jacob Zeitz and just their abilities of being able to understand where each other are going to be. But the one thing that I loved about GM in this game tonight, as we went through the highlights, is they used the entirety of the field. One of the things I love about this connection between Isaac and Jacob Zeitz, their passes are never to the same spot of the field. Sometimes they go to the corner of the end zone. Other times you're going to see them going into the middle of the field on crossing routes. There's so much ability for this Lancer team to move the ball outside the hash marks, but then also attack the middle if need be. And I think that's the one thing that you see with Marshall McCormick that's really deadly. This team is capable of going to all areas of the field, and as they roll along through the season, I think you're only going to see more of that. A team that's willing to spread the football out, willing to use certain concepts, but different sets to be able to have different sort of plays. And Lancers keep rolling. Them and Cathedral Prep have looked really good through 4 weeks. And we're starting to see the teams that are going to be really competitive come the end of October, beginning of November, materialize here. All right, we're going to take another short break. When we come back, one more highlight for you, then we'll wrap up our show as we roll along here on the Gem City Sports Podcast. One more highlight for you before we wrap up the show. A little picture-in-picture here. How about Union City and Iroquois? Of course, the decision coming down earlier yesterday from the Braves, from District 10, that the Braves had to forfeit their game for using an ineligible player in week number 1. First play from scrimmage, though, not stopping him tonight. Cole Bennett, the long run for a first down in the red zone. 5 plays later, Bennett finishing the drive. 7-0 Braves in front. Then after Union City punt, this time Bennett going to the air. A little pump fake action. Ben Roethlisberger-esque to Carmelo Hunter for the score. All Braves tonight. They take down Union City 40-0. We'll wrap up the show when we come back. Final thoughts from Jonathan Williams. All right, 30 seconds left in our show portion. Make sure to go on to our live stream with post-show reaction afterwards online. Jonathan, final thoughts from tonight as we wrap up the CW portion of the show.
A lot of offense, a lot of talented offense, and we've kind of spoken about it a little bit on the show, but you're seeing a lot of teams spread the ball around a lot more. You're seeing a lot less get under center, hand the ball off, triple option, wing tee. Like, you're seeing a lot less of that around the entire region. These teams are slinging the ball. The quarterbacks are playing well, receivers are playing well, and guys are making plays on the outside. So it's really fun football.
Can't wait. Week 4 in the books. Week 5 will be even more exciting next week. Again, we continue on till about 10:40, 10:45 on our live stream. Football Fridays at 11:15 on WICU and WSCE. That's all for us in the CW. We'll see you Monday on the Critical Eye. All right, and with that, we are back on our stream. Joining us via Zoom, Jonathan Williams on the left. Here, myself in the right box on the Critical Eye, just wrapping up on the CW, and we are streaming live on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, on Facebook. Send us a comment what your favorite moment from the night was in Week 4 of high school football. Isaac Petcash, Jonathan Williams, want to run down some of the scores from you from week number 4, the scores that we didn't get to in the show portion of things. How about out in Crawford County, Meadville, drubbing Oil City tonight, 42-6. Big win for Northwestern over Eisenhower this evening, 32-14, the final in that game. Cambridge Springs gets back on track. They down Sagertown 36-3. And Titusville over Conneaut 46-19. They picked off Ben Easler 3 times in that game. In Girard, the Corey Beavers, they bounced back from their loss to Fort LaBeouf last week, 52-18 over the Yellow Jackets. Other scores that we also did not get to in Mercer County, Lakeview over Maplewood 28-13, Greenville shutout Cochranton 62-0. How about the Sharon Tigers beating Hickory 20-14 in what we've presumed is going to be the 3A championship game if those two teams end up playing to their capacity? But it's Sharon, the win over Hickory in a big game there. And of course, the other scores that we talked about in the show. 2 big games of the night, Mercyhurst Prep over Seneca 35-21 and Fairview 23 over Harbor Creek 14. Jonathan, I want to go back to the Fairview Harbor Creek game because I think we talked about it a lot during the show, but I don't think we got exactly everything that this game deserved. You've been part, I'm sure, of games on the end of Harbor Creek and the end of Fairview, right? And I want to talk about just the mentality that the Tigers now will have going into the rest of the season. What does a win like that do for a team that was playing well to begin with? You could argue should be 4-0 if not for that fumble against Grove City. What does that do mentally for a squad when you just storm the gate in the second half and you score those 23 unanswered points?
Well, number one is it serves as a wake-up call. You can't come out sleepwalking against anyone. You can't afford to come out and start slow against anyone that you play. Everyone that you play is good. Everyone that you play can beat you. And that first half should serve as a reminder for the remainder of the season. Like, hey, remember how we started in the Harbor Creek game and what we had to do to win that. That shouldn't happen anymore for the rest of the season. And that's one of those things that their coaches are going to be on them about. And their coaches are going to be very, very adamant about them having fast starts from here on out. But the second thing that comes up is they know that they're in every game that they play. Like, that's one of those things where, okay, you start out slow and you get down in the first half. You know that you're never really out of a game as long as you can figure out a way to turn it on. And that's a powerful thing to have as a mindset, as an entire team, when you know nothing can really rattle you. You can get down by 14, you can get down by 21. You are never truly out of a game. You always have that belief. That's really powerful, and that's going to carry them when they get into postseason play.
And again, keep in mind, I know we've talked about Region 5 ad nauseum in this show, but it deserves it given the talent at the top. Now you look at, okay, it's Fort LaBeouf, it's Fairview, but you can't discount Harbor Creek because the Huskies, for half football, were taking it to maybe the best team in that region. So there's a lot of power at the top. There's still going to be a lot to be discussed as we move forward through the next few weeks. But now for Fairview, that's just a huge win for this team. Also want to touch quickly on Jonathan. We didn't get to it in the show portion. A couple of people are commenting here about the games that happened last night. Fort LaBeouf beating Northeast 28-23. Great Pickers, a good showing despite the loss. And also McDowell over Erie 28-24. Another game for the Royals that they were close to their rival. They couldn't pull it out. But I want to touch on Stephon Porter. 3 touchdowns for this McDowell running back Big win for the Trojans, I think, to get back on track. A lot of people will look at this game and they'll say, it was close. McDowell's normally won this pretty convincingly in the last few years, really since the COVID pandemic. It wasn't their best showing. But I think we've talked about, Jonathan, on this show in the last few weeks. Okay, McDowell's had to play 2 Ohio powerhouses. Their defense hasn't looked great. Their offense has struggled at times. I think this was more of a get back on track game for McDowell. And look, a win's a win in a rivalry game in what's going to be the 6A championship.
Yeah, a win's a win for them. But honestly, let's give credit where credit is due, though, to Erie. Erie came out and played football. And what we've seen from Erie all season, Erie is not a bad football team at all. They have had really good showings. Even in the loss to Cathedral Prep, they were right there in that game. In this loss, they were right there in that game. We are seeing the upward trend of the Erie Royals right now before our eyes, even in the games that they are not winning. So for me, for McDowell, you played 2 powerhouses in your opening 2 weeks, and this is a good win to kind of get the ball rolling, get back on track, and start progressing towards your goals as a team for the rest of the season. But for Erie, man, there's nothing really to hang your heads about in the way that you were going out and competing in these games. These games, from what I've heard in recent years, have not been close. And there have not been really anybody that gives Erie a shot in these games. Erie is waking a lot of people up right now and reminding people that they play football over there on that side of the city too.
Yeah, and to your point, I think if the Royals can continue to build on what Andre Henderson's built, I think you're going to start seeing in the next couple of years these games continue to be competitive, and if not, start going in Erie's favor. I mean, again, they have the talent pool, they have the ability. I just think it's about putting it together, and they were close. They've been close twice against Prep and McDowell this year, and they're going to get McDowell again. That's the great thing for the Royals, is they get to see the Trojans one more time at the 6A championship. So there is potentially light at the end of the tunnel for Erie, but kudos to McDowell for the bounce-back win. That was, of course, played on Thursday. Got to all the scores, I think. We've talked a lot about the games locally in our area. Let's go ahead and close with this, Jonathan, because I think it's important to maybe elongate on our most impressive performers of the night. Give me your one team that you think was the most impressive from your bird's eye view in tonight's show and watching the highlights. The one team that you thought really stood out and had the most impressive game based on the circumstances.
Based on circumstances, you got to go Fairview with the comeback. You don't like to start as slow as you started, but the ability to come back in that game and still pull it out and kind of show why you are, as of right now, one of the top teams in that region. That's an impressive performance, and it's an impressive show of willpower to fight your way back into that game and still pull it out.
And to me, the individual performance of Vinny Campoli and what he was able to do in that second half, I don't think I've seen a quarterback be told, essentially, coming off an injury, look, we're going to put the game on your shoulders. And Mark Sobolewski was pretty adamant about that. He said, look, we were timid about letting him run play after play after play in the first few weeks, but I think they've ripped the Band-Aid off. And look, not that you want to risk another injury for Vinny, but that's your best player on offense. And I think if Fairview can continue to allow him to, and I said this during the show, allow him to run the offense, but also run the field and be the field general, i.e. making adjustments at the line of scrimmage, coming up with audibles when necessary. It's a sign of a coach that trusts the quarterback. And I think that that's something that Mark Sobolewski and Vinny Campoli have, is that connection that you don't always see between coach and quarterback. You could argue, okay, Marshall McCormick and Isaac Zeitz have that. You look at other coaches around the region, Aaron Slocum, Blaze Myers from McDowell certainly would be one. Maybe it's Mike Cray and Davin Friedman for Cathedral Prep. Morgan Appleby with Nate Liberty at Cambridge Springs. All of those coaches have trust in their quarterback, and you see that on the field pre-snap, 15 on the play clock, 10 on the play clock. They're able to make reads, adjustments, and understand how to put the offense in the best position to gain positive yards on big plays. And we saw that tonight with Vinny Campoli. My biggest performance of the night, the most impressive one for me, shout out again to Mercyhurst Prep for what they were able to do and put up 35 points against a stingy Seneca defense. To me, they're my performance of the night, only because I think, the way that the offseason went for Mercyhurst Prep and all of the talent that they lost and the struggle that they had at the beginning of the season with having to welcome in Sharon in week number 1. And that was essentially a death trap for this Laker team, knowing the talent that Sharon brought back and what Mercyhurst Prep was going to have to do. Jeff Root's a heck of a coach, man. What they are able to do, especially given the fact tonight that they were facing a Seneca team hot at 3-0 coming in. Big kudos to them. They leaned on what they do best, and that's running the football. They had a couple of big runs, as you saw in the highlight there. Mercyhurst Prep, look, you never count them out, especially with Coach Root at the helm.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to do to stop a team who's rolling. And Seneca came into this game rolling after their first 3 weeks, putting up a lot of points, not really having very many close games. So it's a tough thing to do to go in and kind of put that fire out a little bit. And a strong run game is definitely a great way to do it. When you're able to lean on your run game and kind of run the football at will, it makes it a lot easier. And honestly, that game might look a lot different if you don't have the 2 fumbles. Because in those possessions, you're driving the football, you're running the football there too. So Mercyhurst Prep might have found a recipe for success for their offense going forward. Lean on the run game and protect the football, and you could be dangerous going into the rest of the season.
All right, Jonathan, final thoughts before we get out of here. It's our show tradition for the first few weeks of this. We're going to have our next show Monday, 9 a.m., talkerie.com. YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. What is something we are going to be talking about on Monday morning when we come on the air?
Okay, so before I give my something that we're going to be talking about on Monday morning, I'm going to highlight the fact that I was right about something that we were going to be talking about today, because I said last night on the pod that Buffalo was going to win by 3 scores and they were going to force more turnovers on Tua, and that game wasn't going to be as close as we originally thought.
Mr. Nostradamus.
Now, obviously, and of course, thoughts and prayers with Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah. You hate to see everything that's going on with him and the injury problem that he's seeming to have. But that's kind of where I'm leaning for my thing that we're talking about on Monday is it might not be Monday. I think it'll be early, but it might not be Monday. But I think we may have just seen Tua play his last football game as an NFL athlete.
It's a good one. It's not good for the circumstances. Again, you feel awful for this young man who has made great strides in the league and quite frankly has become a top 10 quarterback and got paid as such. But, at some point, and this being a former player, at some point, family and your well-being comes before the game, and hopefully Tua is able to continue. But if he's not, certainly understandable. I'm also going to go on the Buffalo route. I put this in the group chat during the game, and I truly believe this. My bold prediction is simple. I think we're talking about on Monday how the AFC East is already a wrap. I do not see how Miami, if Tua is out even for multiple weeks, even if it's a few weeks, I don't see how Miami, given that performance on Thursday, is able to come back and overtake Buffalo. We've seen the Jets and their limitations with the offense and how anemic it was in week number 1, albeit against San Francisco. And the funny thing is New England may be 2-0 against the 0-2 Jets going into week 3, but we know they're not going to keep up. I think this division's already over, and I really do. And I'm not saying that as someone who covers the Bills and is a homer. I just don't see a path forward for these 3 other teams. And barring a big injury to a Josh Allen, even with Terrell Bernard out likely a few weeks, I don't think it's going to really make much of a difference. Buffalo's got a game against Jacksonville next Monday night. I think they're favored in that game. I think they win. And then if you can take even one of the next 3, against Houston, Baltimore, and the Jets, you're sitting at 4-2 going into week 7, and arguably the hardest part of your schedule is behind you. Take out Kansas City and San Francisco. So I think this division is going to be a wrap. I think we're going to be talking about that on Monday, how Buffalo is essentially going to coast to the AFC East. I know it's only 2 weeks, and that's a bold prediction, but I don't think that's really far off either. All right, that's a wrap for tonight's show. Again, if you watch us on the CW and you're watching us online, or you just watched us online the entire night tonight, thanks again for being with us. Apologies for the technical difficulties earlier in the show, but we make things work, and we're excited to, of course, bring you the content night in, night out. Football Fridays, 11:15, coming up in about a half hour on WICU and WSCE. More highlights to get to from high school football. And then Jonathan and I will be back around the horn at 9 a.m. on Monday when we overreact and go crazy about NFL week number 2 and also some high school and college results as well. Get some sleep. Enjoy your Friday. We'll see you all coming up on Monday on the Jump City Sports Podcast.